Back by popular demand, it is time for a Goldie on Ice podcast. It's been a little while, folks, but certainly appropriate. Instead of having a Stanley Cup championship celebration and parade this year, the Panthers took their playoff absence and incredibly turned it into one of the most ferocious and best wingers in the NHL, and Matthew Tkachuk's brother, Brady Tkachuk. So I'm sure a lot of people were caught by surprise, maybe at the timing of it, a week before the draft. But, hey, you know the Panthers by now, extremely aggressive. And once again, they bring in a high-end caliber player and do not, once again, touch the core of their roster. And that has been a mainstay of what the franchise has incredibly been able to do. So whether it's, Seth Jones or Sam Reinhart or Sam Bennett or Brad Marchand, I mean, the list goes on and on of players the Panthers have brought in have not had to touch the core of their team. They've done it again. So 4 draft picks go to the Ottawa Senators, the Panthers' own pick on Friday night, which was number 9 for missing the playoffs. The 25th pick, which the Panthers received yesterday for Mackie Samoskevich, who, look, if you're going to get Brady Tkachuk, there's no room in the top 6. And certainly on another team, Mackie Samoskevich can play in the top 6 on a team that's not quite as loaded, that doesn't have Reinhart, the Tkachuks, and Verhaeghe on those wings. And then you even go to Brad Marchand and Eetu Losterinen. That's the top 9 for the Panthers if you want to go there. So the best of luck to Mackie. Incredibly, the Panthers were able to get, a couple of picks for a guy they picked in the first round. So impressive return. Hopefully it works out for Mackie in Seattle. I believe it will out there in the West. And good for him. He gets the opportunity. And as a restricted free agent, if it's not this year, then hopefully in short order for him, he gets a contract that he just couldn't get with the Panthers, obviously, with the number of players the team has signed. And speaking of players signed, through 2028, basically the entire team is set, and really further than that, because Brady Tkachuk, I mean, there's no question. It's, I believe, inevitable, a matter of time, whenever it is that he ends up staying here. He didn't, want to come to the Panthers just for 2 years. So you would think at some point in the next 24 months, there's a contract extension there as well. And so you look at it really for the rest of the decade. The team is loaded. It's a championship pedigree, and there's more talent. It's now a rested team going into this year, and it's a motivated team. It's always a motivated team, but hey, they don't just come off winning 2 championships. They come off a year in which they didn't make the playoffs for extenuating circumstances, namely injuries. But you love the situation they're in. So back to the trade, number 9 and 25 on Friday night. And then the Panthers' 2029 first-round draft pick, reportedly, again, like the Seth Jones deal, top 10 protected. And, those little things in these trades are so key. For example, the Panthers may have not been able to do the Brady Tkachuk deal if the deal they made with Chicago to get Seth Jones a couple of years ago was not top 10 protected, because then the pick would have gone to Chicago. Because it was top 10 protected and the Panthers came in at number 9, literally right under the wire to get that pick, they were able to engineer the trade for Tkachuk. So the 2029 first-round pick and then a 2030 second-round pick. Look, people can talk about draft capital all you want. I mean, those picks 3 and 4 years from now, if they ever make the NHL, you're talking about 2032. Those players make it 2033. I mean, that's half a dozen years from now. So, Ottawa was painted into a corner, obviously. So they had to do the best they could. The Panthers did not have a pick to give them in the first round in the next 2 years, because those are going to Chicago and Boston for Jones and Marchand and that 2025 banner in the rafters. So the Panthers still have 2 twos coming up on Friday, as of time of recording of this. Number 40, which was their own, and number 48, which was a trade for Justin Sordiff. And then, although they don't have a high first-round pick or a first-round pick next year, they're probably going to have a high too. They get the higher pick of whether it's Columbus or Winnipeg. So you would think, look, even if both those teams have pretty good years for them, you would think that pick would be in the mid-40s. So the Panthers do have that pick in the Samoskevich trade as well. So second-round picks they've got over the next couple of years. But again, this team is all about winning now. And it's not just in the immediate future. It's not just the next year or two. I mean, you look at players that are signed. Again, Brady Tkachuk has 2 years left. He's the youngest of the whole crew now, which is great. Not only do you get a great player, okay, and a guy that brings everything he brings to the table from the scoring and the talent, but that tenacity that you just love and really doesn't exist all that often in players that talented. It is hard to find a guy that good that also brings all the other stuff. Guys that usually bring all the other stuff are more of your depth players, and they have to bring all that other stuff because they just don't have, the talent level that a top guy has. Brady Tkachuk is all of that and more. So you look at these player contracts and these guys all in their prime, and now finally all of them with either anywhere from a 6 to 18 or 16 month in Barkov's case rest. The window is wide open, not just for a year or two, but for a number of years. When you look at all these players being signed and being in their prime, and the other key factor with the Panthers, they don't ask these players. No one has to do it all by themselves. And that is a huge factor as you go forward and guys become 30 years old and into their 30s. You're not asking one or two players to carry the mail. And Brady Tkachuk, look, he had to do almost everything in Ottawa. I mean, look, I know Tim Stützle was on his line, and later on they brought in Giroux, and, they've got some talented forwards there in Ottawa. Batherson is a good player. But Brady Tkachuk had to do an awful lot for an awful long time. And they did make the playoffs the last 2 years, but you're now asking him to be a piece of the puzzle. I mean, there are going to be nights in the regular season, and we know this from, past years, where the Tkachuks and the Barkovs, you're not asking them to play 22, 23 minutes. There are going to be nights where they're in the teens, sometimes even in the mid-teens. And the balance in the lineup is just remarkable. So a little tinkering to do, depth-wise, and obviously the big question mark that everybody wants to know is in goal. And I don't have the answer the same way you don't have the answer, but I will answer it this way, that the Panthers management has proven time and time again how good they are. You kind of just trust them to get it done. Now, look, Sergei Bobrovsky's going to be 38 years old. The Panthers, they've got to be smart with it. They not only need a starting goalie, they need a backup goalie. Unless Cooper Black is going to be the starter, which maybe he is. Maybe he's the third guy. They'll bring in another guy as well to play or can be the 1-2 in Charlotte. So that's the next, piece of the puzzle. How it fits as far as the team's depth. And, on their fourth line, because basically your top 9, assuming Verhaeghe, Barkov, Reinhart, still incredible to say it, Tkachuk, Bennett, Tkachuk, Losterinen, Lundell, and Marchand. It's the best top 9 in hockey. I mean, your third line was probably your best line during the run to win the Cup 13 months ago. And you're penciling them in as a third line. So, and we all know that Anton Lundell and Brad Marchand, along with that too, in the playoffs can do a lot more. When they are called upon, if they have to. And, that often is the line that makes it difficult for teams to match up with. Very often the top lines cancel each other out in the playoffs, and then you go to that third line, and it's a huge factor. I mean, you look at Vegas this year when they had Tomas Hertl on that third line, and Colton Sissons was on the third line, and for a little while Mark Stone was there. And for example, the Colorado series, they just couldn't match up with it. And you look at the Lundell line, whoever's been with the two Finns, in 23 it was Sam Reinhart, in 24 it was Vlad Tarasenko, and in 25 was Brad Marchand. No teams could compete with that. And as the playoffs went on, that line became more and more of an impact. So really encouraging. Evan Rodriguez signed another year. Jesper Boquist signed another year for the 26-27 season. Cole Reinhardt is in the mix. The Panthers have the rights to Cole Schwinn. So we'll see how it shakes out. And you know about the defense, Forsling, Ekblad, Mikola Jones, Kulikov, Balinskis. Do the Panthers go internal for the 7th defenseman and the 8th defenseman? Obviously, it takes, 8 or even 9 sometimes to get through a season. Do they bring in a veteran as maybe a rotation guy in the 6th spot, or as a 7? Do they get that guy now? Do they get that guy before the season starts? They've had a history of doing that right before the season starts. You go back to, a guy like Josh Mahura and, last year getting Cole Schwint. I mean, the Panthers have had a history of doing that on the waiver wire. Or do you just wait and see how it plays out? And if you need someone, you go get him at the deadline. Again, in that Sam Miskevich trade, not only does it secure Brady Tkachuk now, but it also gives you and you'll know at the deadline where that second-round pick is. If Columbus or Winnipeg, are not having a great year, then the Panthers and everybody else in the league knows if they're trading a pick, it's going to be whether it's top 45, top 40, or wherever it is. And that's a pretty valuable pick when you need something at the trade deadline. So again, the Panthers have not only acquired another great player, but they've also still got the flexibility moving forward. And it is incredible to see, and the energy, the juice that's going to be there when Brady Tkachuk makes that Panther debut at Amarin Bank Arena. And you wonder, does the NHL, and just me talking out loud, thinking about this when I heard about the trade, schedule-wise, does the NHL send Brady Tkachuk to make his debut for the Florida Panthers into Carolina for the banner raising on opening night? I mean, there's a great chance that's your Eastern Conference final next year, which would, by the way, be the 3rd time in 4 years they played. Obviously, the Panthers beat Carolina twice, and Carolina winning the Cup this year, getting through it without the Panthers in the way. And then you also wonder with Brady Tkachuk who the home opener's against. It is very exciting, and I hope, I do appreciate the generation now that this team is in, because it's been already, a handful of years of championship caliber hockey, and the window is still wide open to keep the thing going into the 2030s, which is really incredible when you think about it. So I just hope it doesn't come around very often in sports. It hasn't come around very often this long in South Florida. Well, not very often, ever. Even when the teams have won. And I guess if you go back into the 70s, the Dolphins had, and into the 80s, you're talking about really, and they made a championship game in the early 90s. I mean, you're talking about a 20-25-year window there with a few ups and downs, in the late 70s there, in the late 80s a little bit. But, the Dolphins won the 2 Super Bowls, were in the playoffs every year. Then when it kind of leveled off a little bit and Bob Greasy retired and that crew was done, the Dolphins drafted Dan Marino in 83 and then had another decade plus of a window. But the championships, were won in obviously 72 and 73 in the back-to-back, Super Bowls. And the 73 team, some say, being better than the 72 team, I believe was the case, right? That's what some of the Dolphins say. In any event, that would be the only thing that you can even compare what we're in and what's coming up to. So it is amazing to see what the Florida Panthers are doing. And I hope you enjoy it. And we'll see you soon again here on the podcast. And many of you, of course, in person throughout South Florida through different events. Take it easy.